Hi, everyone. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jeff.
And you're listening to We Judge a Show by its Pilot, a podcast where we do exactly what the title says. On today's episode, we're judging the pilot of one of the top shows of all time.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our pod.
Hey, what's up?
So we have some really big news.
We have a hurricane?
Well, okay, so we have two things of news. Yes, we have Francine. We have Francine. I've been yelling Francine at work all day. We got a hurricane heading our way, and we're pretty prepared for it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to hit Wednesday sometime.
Yes.
Wednesday
like
evening.
Wednesday afternoon, the band should start coming, and
Yeah.
then like overnight, whatever's going to hit, quote unquote,
Yeah.
will happen Wednesday night.
So we got food, we got drinks, we got some booze. We have a lot of stuff to watch.
Yeah.
So we have a Generac. So we should be good to go. Hopefully this isn't going to be a bad one. This is just going to be just a
Lots
really
of
bad.
rain.
Just lots of rain.
Wind, maybe. We've picked up the patio. A few things left to pick up on the patio. So
And then you have a AOPI party
tomorrow night.
And but today another big bit of news, and it really fits with this what the episode is today, which is what I kind of sort of planned it that way unintentionally.
Planned
It was we had to do this episode, and I was like, well, we got to do it today because it was your last day of physical therapy.
Yes, it was a big day.
It was very sweet. You brought everyone donuts.
I brought them all donuts, and they were eating them while they were walking around.
Of course, donuts
on
are
the floor.
awesome.
So it was really funny. They were all like kind of fighting. I got like mixed dozen, I just told them to pick whatever.
Yeah.
And they were all kind of fighting over who was going to get what donut and stuff. So it was sweet. They were very excited.
So how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's still very, very tender on the incision location. Like at the very end of PT, they always do this like really, really deep massage.
Like
and
right there.
And it's really intended to get, I'm going to guess like the scar tissue inside to not form or to not get thick. I don't know the medical terminology for it.
I'm nodding like I know I don't.
Yeah. So, they massage it. You've been massaging my ankle.
Yes.
You've been doing it very gently, which I know you're just terrified of hurting me. And I keep telling you, do it harder. Because I keep telling you how hard they do. Like today, though, I like winced and pulled my leg back. And she was like, did that hurt? And I was like, yes, it did. And she was just like, is it tender? And I was like, yes. I was like, it's still like, I mean, like right now, just sitting, I'm fine. But I mean, she was really going hard on it. And they use this like little sort of like scraper thing, like it's like a credit card, and they just kind of rub that on your leg. And anyway,
I know what you're talking about. We also had a pretty fun weekend.
Oh my gosh.
We went to Smoothie King Center on Saturday night, and we saw Childish Gambino.
So amazing.
It was
I can't even like.
Probably the best live show experience I've ever had, and maybe I'm having recency bias, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. It was incredible. It was incredible.
You and I have been to a lot of different concerts in our life.
Mm-hmm.
This one to me was just really even more wild that I enjoyed myself, because I really only knew one or two of his songs, but even more funny is I didn't even know who it was though. Like when you told me, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I mean, it was a long time ago when I told you this. It wasn't like you recently just found this out.
Right.
Because I think I've always had like Redbone in the on my playlist, and I think you maybe commented that you liked the song, or you asked like what it was from or something like that, and I was like, yeah, it's Childish Gambino. And you were, I think you didn't know who that was.
I
was like, it's Donald Glover. And you were like, oh.
Yeah. And so, when my friend Tara came over to hang out for the weekend last weekend, she told me that she and her husband were going to see him. and she helped me score some amazing tickets, and so I surprised you and told you I got them. You were at work, and happy early birthday.
Thank you.
But we are also very concerned because he canceled his Houston show yesterday, and then he posted an announcement on Insta that he has now canceled the rest of his North American tour due to health issues. And of course, he did not disclose what those health issues were. Don't know if he's just physically worn out, maybe COVID, maybe just mental health. I'm sure doing those concerts night after night or just physically and just, taxing.
For what it's worth, he put on one hell of a show.
Oh my gosh.
He sounded amazing.
It was great.
I hope he's doing well.
Shout out to you, Donald Glover, Childish Gambino. We love you.
Listen to our community episode.
Yes.
And I'm sure we'll be doing Atlanta at some point.
Oh, for sure, because that's one that we have not watched.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've watched it.
You've watched it. I have not. But anyhow.
All right. So that also kind of comes full circle. We're talking about his health problems, and today we are judging the pilot of one of, looking at the stats, I think we can say one of the most popular dramas of all time, if not the most popular medical drama of all time. We are talking about ER. And the name of the pilot was 24 Hours.
Yes.
And so this is, we're going to talk about it in a second. This is one of the most popular shows of all time. Definitely ruled the 90s for a very long time. It launched so many careers.
Oh, yeah.
But this is also one of your favorite shows, or one of your favorite shows maybe in its time.
Yes, because I started watching it when it premiered. It was part of the NBC Thursday lineup with shows like Friends. They even had a Friends crossover at one point, but it was definitely part of the, my Thursday nights of, if I was at the townhouse where I went to college, or, when I was back at home during law school, I'd watch it.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to get right into it. Anna's going to give us some episode and series information. Anna, let's hear it.
All right. ER is American medical drama. It was created by Michael Crichton.
That's crazy.
I know. And then there's actually some recent scoop on that there's a new medical drama with Noah Wyle starting.
Oh, wow.
Or kind of in pre-production. And Michael Crichton's family feels like it is sort of a kind of a byproduct of ER that they have not kind of given their stamp of approval on. And
okay, I feel foolish asking. Michael Crichton is no longer alive.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
When did he pass away? Do you know?
I don't remember. No, I don't remember. But his estate is trying to block the production of this series. They say it's different. We haven't seen it yet. Oh, excuse me. All right. So it aired on NBC from September 19th, 1994 to April 2nd, 2009.
So what? Grey's Anatomy is the only medical drama that surpassed it?
Yes, it is it is with a total of 331 episodes spanning 15 seasons. It was produced by Warner Brothers Television, and ER follows the inner life of the emergency room of the fictionalized John H. Stroger Jr. Cook County General Hospital. It's actually a version of the actual real Cook County Hospital in Chicago, and the various professional, ethical, and personal issues that are faced by... Sorry, I'm yawning. I apologize.
It's late. It's
I know.
Fine.
The hospital's physicians, nurses, and staff. As you just noted, it is the second longest running primetime medical drama, second only to Grey's Anatomy.
Which is still going, right?
Yeah, that's still going. And I actually, that was a medical drama that I also watched. Because it takes place in Seattle, and it started when I lived in Seattle.
My favorite medical drama is Scrubs. That's not a drama. That is a comedy.
The highest awarded medical drama, ER won 127 various awards from over 440 nominations. Wow. It won the George Foster Peabody Award, the TCA Award for Program of the Year, and Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Drama Series in 1996. As of 2014, ER had grossed over $3 billion in television revenue, and it is considered just one of the best medical dramas of all time.
Oh, yeah.
And it sort of set the model for other contemporary medical dramas that have since come out. Mm-hmm. So it's one that definitely other shows look to follow their footprint. And so it also was nominated for 124 Primetime Emmy Awards, 25 Golden Globes, 18 Screen Actors Guild, 12 Directors Guilds, 3 Producers Guilds, and 5 Writers Guild of America Awards. The original starring cast consisted of Anthony Edwards as Dr. Mark Green, George Clooney as Dr. Doug Ross, Sherry Stringfield as Dr. Susan Lewis, Noah Wiley as medical student John Carter, Eric LaSalle as Dr. Peter Benton, and Juliana Margulies as nurse Carol Hathaway, which in a bit of trivia, we'll talk about it in the pilot actual description, but she was originally not supposed to be a series regular.
That's really interesting.
And they changed it after the pilot. In addition to the main cast, ER featured a large number of frequently seen recurring cast members who played key roles such as paramedics, hospital support staff, nurses, and doctors. It also featured a sizable roster of well-known guest stars, some who made very rare television appearances when, the big movie stars did not make TV appearances.
Right.
And so coming on to ER was definitely something. I think that ER was so big, they felt it worthy of them.
And they also had like a lot of guest stars who appeared like before they were famous.
Oh, yeah.
Like I have actually kind of made a little bitty list. It was,
okay.
So we have Chris Pine, Taraji P. Henson, Octavia Spencer, Zac Efron, and of course my favorite actor, the late Anton Yelchin, one of your favorite episodes, if I'm not mistaken.
Love's Labor Lost.
Yeah. So that was I just wanted to note that before we continue, just because
Yeah, there's so many.
There was a whole list. I mean, like there were others.
Kirsten Dunst. So many more.
Shia LaBeouf.
Oh yeah. And then, so many of them would either do just a single episode or like a multi-level arc episode, kind of like Kirsten Dunst appeared several times as kind of this like homeless kid that Dr. Ross kind of took under his wing. In its first year, ER attracted an average of 19 million viewers per episode, becoming the year's second most watched television show, just behind Seinfeld on that Thursday night kind of must-watch TV. In the following 2 seasons, ER was the most watched television show in North America, and it was battling for 5 years, ER versus Seinfeld, for the top spot.
Oh, yeah.
And in 1998, Seinfeld ended, and ER became number 1 again. And the series finale attracted over 16 million viewers. And you can currently find episodes on Max and Hulu. Sorry for my yawning.
I usually give you a hard time about your yawning, but it is 11:30 at night.
I know. And
you
were
get
up
a break
early because I had my last PT. It's been a long day.
We're both sleepy. I just got off work. It was a floor night, so I got home kind of late and basically just took a shower, got dressed, shoveled 2 of those donuts into my mouth, and had some drink, and here we are.
All right.
So I kind of had written like what makes this a top show, but you very much covered that.
Oh yeah.
The only thing, specifically, I mean, it was the number one, like you said, it was like it battled for the number one spot, but really it kind of dominated the top spot. It really was only not, I mean, when I say number one, as always, scripted series, there's like 60 Minutes, and then later in the early 2000s, there was like Survivor and American Idol, so those kind of also kind of topped the rating. So when it comes to like a scripted series, ER was number one from 95 to 97, and then it was only number two from 97 to 98, and then from 98 to 2001 it was number one again. So pretty much the second half of the 90s it was all about ER. And also when I looked at that the Nielsen ratings for all those years, NBC was just dominating.
Oh yeah,
it was the top. It was
Friends,
the top every
Mad
time.
About
It was,
You.
it was just top five. It was all NBC. It was very, very impressive. I forget that NBC really has. NBC and ABC really have just been like the dominators compared to like CBS and I guess Fox, because Fox is newer and younger compared to the other networks.
And what's kind of funny in kind of comparing Seinfeld to ER, because that is definitely my era of watching television.
Yeah,
is, you know, Seinfeld was a 30-minute comedy, and then you had ER was a full hour drama series later in the evening. And so, you know, I always kind of feel like that's a little unfair to ER that they were pitted against Seinfeld for the ratings.
That's unfair, yeah.
I mean, in the sense of like, I mean, maybe people just were wanting to watch a comedy and then they went to bed afterwards and turned the TV off.
I mean, it's 30 minutes and then...
But, I mean, you know, they did not suffer, obviously.
And also with Seinfeld, it's what is it, episodic? You know, it's very much like you can watch any episode and you're fine. But with ER, I mean, yeah, I guess that's also episodic. But with the characters, there is a continuing storyline. I don't know. I didn't really watch ER.
Yeah,
so
there were threads of you know, continuing relationships and things that were happening.
Dynamics, yeah.
But definitely, I mean, Seinfeld was very a situation comedy,
right.
Like very singular episodes.
So what was it about this show that you liked so much?
Well, I will just say, first off, it just was part of the Thursday night lineup.
Right.
But I've always loved shows like that. I mean, you know, I to take it down a notch or up a notch, I don't know which direction. But I loved General Hospital growing up.
That's taking it up a notch.
You know, I mean, I watch soap operas.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's a whole different genre of television, of course. So I watched that all in the 80s and 90s. Definitely a college thing. I watched shows like Saint Elsewhere back in the day. I love shows like Quincy, Quincy MD. He was the, like, I'm going to get it wrong. He was like the coroner or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I've loved medical shows, MASH, all of those. And so I feel like it was just something that was in my interest. And, you know, it was just part of the Thursday night lineup. So why not just continue watching it? And there was also another show on, I think it was CBS, Chicago Hope.
Oh, yeah. I remember that show.
It was always kind of like, you know, you had your two cop shows competing, your two medical shows competing, your two legal shows competing. And so those were the two in the mid 90s that were competing.
Gotcha.
I don't think Chicago Hope, though, ever got to the level of ER.
Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman.
Yeah, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. So,
at first, when you were saying like Dr. Quinn, I'm like, she's not talking about the Medicine Woman.
No, I'm not.
But as soon as you said MD, I'm like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, so I feel like it was just something that has always interested me. So
just the medical field in general, medical drama, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a certain type of someone, just like with any job, it takes a certain type of someone to be a doctor.
Oh yeah.
All right. So do you want to start off? Which one do you want to start off with?
Okay, so we did my surgery update. So have you ever been to Chicago?
I went to Chicago one time when I think I was about 9 or 10. I went with my dad, my dad's girlfriend, and my sister. My dad's girlfriend's sister My dad's girlfriend's. There it is. Okay, my dad's girlfriend's sister. I'm tired. My dad's girlfriend's sister was an opera singer, and she was living in Chicago at the time, and she was the lead in an operetta called Candide, and we went and saw her in it. And I mean, it's a comedy, so like it was actually from my memory, it was an enjoyable show, and it was really funny.
That's cool.
Other than that, like we didn't really I know we did stuff. I just don't like remember because it was so long ago. I just remember going to see the play. I remember going to the zoo. I remember that was when I was like high into my skating hockey phase. So there was a school, it was Thanksgiving break, and there was a school across the street from where they live. So it was like this big playground. So I was able to like go and rollerblade. We went and ate at a Greek restaurant. That was the first time I ever had Greek food.
Yum.
So that's cool. But yeah, I don't really remember anything else. Maybe I went to the Sears Tower. Maybe. But that's it. I know you've been to Chicago, right?
Yes, I've been a couple of times.
You probably have done a lot more stuff than I did.
Yeah, I went for work a couple of times, and so usually a work trip does not always mean fun stuff happens because we're always doing work stuff. But I did one time, my brother and my mom, I had told my mom I was going to Chicago, and she was like, well, I want to go. I've never been there.
Aww.
So, and then I think my brother might have had something to do there as well, like at the same time. So I had ended up getting a free hotel room. And then, so we went and did stuff like the Sears Tower. We did a boat tour.
Oh, that's cool.
On the river.
Oh, yeah.
Saw like the corn cob towers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The very first AOPI convention I ever went to was in Chicago.
Oh, cool.
So that was fun. I've been to Wrigley Field. It's a very old stadium.
Yeah.
I did not enjoy. It's very dated, obviously. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we went to a couple restaurants. You know, I will say the one bad thing is I don't think I had deep dish pizza when I was there on any of the trips I've ever been on.
I don't think I did either.
But yeah, so I went to sorority convention there. Saw Book of Mormon there with Angela and Karen. Hey, shout out to Angie and Karen, who, funny, are both in the medical field. Karen,
that's right.
Karen is a nurse and Angela is a doctor. She's a radiologist. And so, yeah, so I've been to Chicago a few times. Definitely would love to go back on a non-work or non-conference kind of thing on my own terms.
That is one of the cities that we always try to find
a cheap ticket
to. For some reason, we always end up not going. We always end up going to Vegas.
Yeah.
We just love Vegas so much. So, yeah, I would absolutely love to go. I was not aware of the Bean. I was not aware of a lot of the sites, I guess. I just never really thought of Chicago as like a place that has a lot of sites. Obviously it does. I just never thought about it, I guess.
Well, when you went, you probably didn't think of those things.
Right. I mean, I was
that age.
Quite young. I just thought it was cool. It was like the second time I ever went on a plane. So it was like, I remember being excited about that. So do you have, this is in an ER, obviously, that's set in an emergency room. Do you have any memorable ER stories?
I have a couple. So in college, I was in grad school and I was the graduate assistant for the spirit group. So I drove the cheerleaders to like basketball games and football games and, you know, worked with them on campus when I was in graduate school. And on one weekend, we had a basketball game in Natchitoches. We were playing Northwestern State.
Nice.
And this was from Monroe, so we were driving to Natchitoches, which is probably like maybe 2.5 hours away or so. So, you know, there's usually two vans. I was driving one, and the advisor was driving the other one. And along the way there, I kept feeling like my eyes were just itching, like just really bad. And, you know, I'm like, gosh, you know, what is wrong? Like, am I having an allergic reaction to some things? We get to the basketball game. And at this point, it is just bad. Like, my eyes feel like they are swollen. And it's obviously very unsafe because I can't see. It's night and we're having to drive back for 2.5 hours. And I'm like looking at the advisor, the cheerleader advisor, and I'm like, I cannot drive safely. I'm like, someone else is going to have to drive, which was crazy because, none of the cheerleaders, obviously had permission to drive the university vehicles home. But,
right.
What were we going to do?
Right.
Me, who was practically blind at the time, drive. So someone drove home. And by the time I got back to the townhouse, it was bad. I was not feeling well. My eyes just felt like they were just closing up. I feel like I look like a mosquito. Think of like Jeff Goldblum in The Fly, like his big eyeballs. Really, that's how I felt. So the next morning I woke up. My roommate, Pam, that night, she saw me and she was like, you do not look good. and I was like, yeah. And so I could tell like my eyes were just filled with just like pus or something. It looked like glue was in my eyes. And so the next morning it was beyond, like my eyes were swollen shut. Like just, you could not see, I could not open my eyes. Mm-hmm. They were that bad. So she was like, we've got to go to the emergency room. So this was before urgent cares were around. You either just went to your primary care physician if you had one or an ER. Like mm-hmm. there were no other options. So we went to the emergency room in Monroe and the lady at the desk was like, oh my God, and I'm like, I started crying, because I'm like, it sort of confirmed that things weren't good. I mean, I knew they weren't, but that just solidified it. And so we go to the back and the doctor is like, oh my gosh, what is wrong? And so, without giving me any kind of like real warning, he's like, I need to see in the eye. I need to see what is in your eye. He could tell something was in there. He like kind of pulls the bottom of my eyelid down, the bottom part of my eyelid. And he has like one of those little like plastic, like little teeny tiny spoons that you look like you mix up stuff with. I don't know what.
Like a little like pollen scraper.
Yeah. I guess that's, yeah. And he like scoops this stuff out of my eye. It hurt. I don't know why it didn't he didn't scrape my inner part of my eye. It just felt that way. I screamed so loud. My roommate heard me out in the waiting room.
And I will give you credit. You have a very high tolerance for pain. You and I are both weenies when it comes to pain stuff. We're very much like when we go to the dentist, we're like, just go to town on us. We want to get out of here. So to hear you actually react, to a pain, to something like that, and you're saying how painful it is, like, I believe you.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," and I was like, "You didn't tell me you were doing that." And so anyway, I think it was just some sort of like infection or something. Yeah. I have no idea ever to this day of what it was. And then so this was like back in the day when you just didn't have like the information. Right. I mean, like they probably gave me some antibiotics, a shot, and said, "Good luck."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like now where there's an app or a website where you can go and see your chart,
right?
Whatever results were. But I remember that this was around the Super Bowl. In fact, I think the Super Bowl was that Sunday. So the game was on a Saturday night and the Super Bowl was that Sunday. And Pam and I were supposed to have a bunch of people over. And I was like, no. I don't know if I'm like, contagious or something. I'm like, we cannot have people over. So we had to cancel. And like all my like friends that were going to come over, like called and were worried. But I remember Pam calling my mom's house. And I think my mom was at church and she told my sister happened to be in town with my nephew. And she told them that I had been to the ER and, my sister then relayed the message to my mom and, it was crazy. I think, my mom was definitely not a person who like ever thought we were really sick. But when she heard that I had gone to the ER and my eyes were swollen shut, she was pretty concerned. I hate making my mom sound like she, like was never worried about me, but my mom was definitely the person of like, unless you're actually bleeding out your eyeballs, you're not sick. Well, I was actually practically bleeding out my eyeballs. So I think she very much was concerned and was worried. And, after a couple days after the antibiotics kicked in and whatnot, I think I was fine after that. Obviously, I have eyes that I can still see. But yeah, I never to this day know what it was. Just maybe a random like infection of some kind. So, and then probably most recently was when I had food poisoning in Biloxi. And so we had eaten, I will not say the name of the restaurant. We had eaten in Biloxi.
We've also eaten there since. So.
Yes. But, I had gotten food poisoning pretty quickly, which is what happens with food poisoning. And I had been throwing up all night, like literally all night. And I mean, it was probably, I think I threw up at least 12 to 15 times. I have no idea how my intestines didn't eventually come out of me. Well, the next morning when I woke up, I think my body was in like spasm and I thought I was having a heart attack. I didn't make the connection to the fact that I had been throwing up for about 8 hours straight.
Yeah.
To the fact that my muscles were pulled. And so I remember texting your mom, who's a nurse, and my sister, who can self-diagnose anything. Shout out to both of them. Love you both. Both of them thought I might be having a heart attack. And so, of course, like, I freak out. You sort of freak out. And we decide to go to urgent care.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, if you think you're having a heart attack, you need to go to the ER. Get the hell out of here. So we go to the ER. And I am not having a heart attack. I'm probably more likely just having a basic chest muscle spasm from having thrown up so much. So that was a fun bill to get for, What about you? Have you been to the ER?
Yeah. So I have a little list. Yeah, I've been in the ER a couple times in my life. The first time I was in preschool. So preschool, I was before, I guess. And I somehow, once again, don't fully remember. It is one of my earliest, if not my first memory, of somehow my pinky got caught in the door jamb. And when they opened the door, it had been sliced off, and then you can see that at the very top of my pinky. Yeah. There's like a little line. I don't know if did you ever know that?
No.
Okay.
Maybe I did.
So it was like, so basically when it happened, of course I'm screaming. And
what door? The car door?
It was like a bathroom door.
Oh,
I don't remember. I was inside of the classroom, because it was preschool.
Oh, okay.
And all I fully remember is that it happened. I'm screaming, like it's not the tip of my pinky. It's like it's like a portion of my pinky because my finger was smaller. So like my finger is just like hanging. The top of my finger is like hanging off, but it's like still on there. And there's blood everywhere, and kids are like stepping in my blood, jumping over my blood. I just remember all of it like happening. It was very chaotic, and I remember being one of the teachers, I guess, bringing me to the ER. Maybe my mom was in nursing school at this time. Maybe. I don't think she was a full-on nurse yet. But I don't have a lot of memories of that just because it was so long ago. But that's my earliest memory of going to an ER. And then many, many years later when I was working at, I guess I could say it, I was working at Applebee's, and we were taking down the hood vents, like above the grill, above the fryer, and they were very old, and they had little pieces of metal kind of sticking out that I was not aware of.
No.
And I felt a little jab in my hand, and then I took it out, and there's literally a hole in my hand in like the little dip right there in between my thumb and my index finger right here.
To make the
L. I could see my pulse.
Oh my God.
I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of cool looking.
Gross.
But I remember since I was at work, I had to go to the ER.
Tetanus shot.
I had to get a shot. I had to, make sure everything was fine. My manager, poor guy, he was like freaking out. He was like, "You might have to get stitches." I'm like, "I'm not gonna have to get stitches." I was like, "I'm not gonna have to get stitches." I wasn't trying to be a know-it-all because, like you said, my mom is a nurse, and at this point, I had no medical training, but I did have some basic knowledge of medical stuff because of my mother. And at that point, I'm like, it's a little hole. I was like, I don't have to get stitches. Like it'll heal, I went to the ER. It was a total waste of time. They gave me some cream. It was like basically like prescription strength Neosporin. And they were like, yeah, just keep it covered. I'm like, great, this is awesome. I'm really glad I spent and this was back in the Baton Rouge ER. Yeah, I was there for all night basically.
Oh no.
And then I was like, just because I was so aggravated that I had to go through all that, I was like, so do I have to go to work tomorrow? And they're just like, we'll write a note. We'll let you be out of work for a few days. I'm like, yes. So that's one of them. And then I didn't go to the ER, but it was something that I was thinking that reminded me while I was writing down my little notes. When I was in 4th grade, I was at a sleepover, and one of my friends, we were doing something, and one of my friends accidentally kicked me in the face. And I mean, I kind of flew back, and I kind of felt wetness right there, and I look, and I mean, my nose was just blood everywhere.
Oh no.
So that was when I discovered that so much of pain is mental, because it didn't hurt. I didn't feel any pain, but it was as soon as I saw the blood, that was when I started to feel the pain, and I'm like, oh, it is kind of just, pain isn't all in your head. There is,
physical pain.
There is physical pain, but I think only so much of it is mental. I think a lot of it is mental, because I was like, yeah, this does, and one of my friends is freaking out because there's blood, and I'm just like, I'm fine. I just want to get this blood off of me. It was just one of those things where I realized that I think that was when I realized I had a high tolerance for pain.
Yeah, that was me and my ER situation was, I knew something was wrong with me.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously my eyes were swollen shut like glue. It wasn't until he put that spoon thing in my eyelid and scooped out the pus to send it off to the lab or something.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they were doing with it, and feeling that and then screaming.
Yeah.
It hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really kind of the entirety of the scenario.
Yeah.
Finally him confirming that something was wrong, and then trying to figure it out.
So then when we met, well, we were living, I don't even think, we weren't even married yet. We were visiting your mom, and I was walking up the front steps of her house, and I mean, I was on the second step, and I kind of lost my balance. And instead of, I mean, obviously, I'm not just gonna let my face hit the cement, but instead, I tried to catch my fall, and I felt a little pain on my foot.
Yeah.
And come to find out, I had broken my foot. I think I went 2 days before getting it confirmed that I'd broken my foot.
I think we knew.
We knew, but
swelled up.
It was a baseball. I mean, it was a baseball, and it was a lot of pain. And then we went to urgent care.
Yeah.
And they were like, your foot's broken. It's the way they described it. It basically was just I forgot what kind of fracture it was called.
I forgot too, but we got your X-rays.
Yeah.
And shout out again to Angela.
Yep.
Who's a radiologist, and to Sarah, who was a former bartender who was in rad tech school.
Yes.
We showed them the X-rays because urgent care doesn't do official serious diagnoses.
No, they just tell you what's wrong with you, and they recommend a physician for you to go to.
Yes.
Or they tell you need to go to this type of physician.
Right.
So and for this, obviously, I'd have to go to orthopedics, but I didn't have that type of insurance yet.
Yeah, and so we had messaged Angela, and so I sent her a picture of your X-ray, and the thing that was just thankful was she was like, it's a break that there's nothing that can really be done. It's nothing that can be surgically fixed if you needed surgery. And so she was just like, put you in a boot and try to keep your weight off of it. So you had to, you couldn't work for like 3 weeks.
I spent almost a month. That was when I watched Game of Thrones. That was when I watched a lot of The Challenge. That was when I watched that was a lot of time in bed. And that was also high time for your work travel.
Yeah.
So I was also on my own. It was my right foot. So I was in a similar situation that you were in now, that I could not drive.
Oh gosh.
For about a month, I couldn't drive. Thankfully, I'm all good. I didn't have to have surgery. Nothing got worse. So I was very thankful for that. And then my last one, I had also, I think, the same exact experience that you had with, except for food poisoning. It was when I got really bad vertigo.
Yes.
And I was like violently throwing up for what felt like an eternity. It was just for a few hours, but that was when I was like on the ground. I was like convulsing. I was just throwing up nothing. I was just convulsing at that point.
You were like flop sweating.
Yes.
It was bad.
It was really bad. And then about a week after that, I started feeling a lot of pain in my chest. Once again, didn't think about the fact that I had thrown up all that, and I was, pulling and stretching my body every which way, heaving up absolutely nothing, and I thought I was having a heart attack.
I know you
same exact thing.
Yeah, you were getting dressed to go to work, and
I was laying in bed. It was really, because it was still dark outside.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't even getting ready for work then. It was like 4:00 in the morning, and I woke up and my chest just hurt so bad, and I was just like, I kind of woke you up. And I was just like, I don't know what's going on, but we need to go get this look. We need to go check this out. I didn't have a heart attack. I had a bruised chest, like my chest wall was bruised or something like that. Finally got that diagnosed, and so I wasn't having a heart attack either. I just didn't. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't pull like a rib. I didn't like pull a rib and it punctured an organ or something like that. I mean, of course, you think of the worst possible thing that could possibly happen to you. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just the most boring answer. You hope for the most boring answer. So those are my ER stories. I think those are all of them.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't really. I mean, yeah, I didn't really have I wasn't like a reckless kid.
All right,
yeah.
But then you have another experience though with being in surgery operating rooms.
Yeah, so I have worked I didn't work in an emergency room, but I've worked in ORs, operating rooms. So I went to school, I was like 25, 26. I went to school to be a surgical tech, which is basically just like a surgeon assistant. That's not a doctor. Basically, not basically, they do a lot, but the idea is you are like the instrument passer. That's like what the like original job description was, but you do a lot more than that. It's so much more than that.
Yeah.
So I learned how to. I mean, the process of scrubbing in is something that you train for, and it is something that you learn. You learn about the different planes on all your limbs that you have to scrub however many times. It's a lot. Learning how to put on your gown and then putting on the surgeon's gown. That's what I did. When we were watching the episode, there was a scene where one of the nurses put on the surgeon's gown, and I was like, oh, that's what I used to do.
Aww.
That was specifically my job. So I worked at, I didn't work there. I did my clinical rotation at Tulane. I think I talked about it in another episode. Oh, yeah, in the Severance episode where I got lost.
Yeah.
And I worked in a bunch of different types of surgery, but probably the one I remember most, I worked in orthopedics a lot, which was fascinating. Okay. Doing all of the different like bone grafts and skin grafts, that was really cool to watch. And then I got to assist in some robotic surgeries, which was very cool.
Okay.
It basically, you have a surgeon, you have the doctors and the assistants and the nurses like around the operating table, and then you have the surgeon kind of off in the corner, like controlling the robotics. Like it's very cool. Yeah. Nothing super fascinating happened. It's working in a hospital is actually, of course, I have very limited experience. I can only speak from my own personal experience, but hospitals aren't nearly as dramatic as they are on TV. It's a lot of paperwork.
Well, I mean, if you've ever been to an ER, you go in and you do a lot of waiting in the waiting room.
Right.
I mean, I remember taking me and my sister. My mom had been under the house. Our house was raised off the ground, and so she was doing something under there. I don't even remember what.
Your mom was a trip, so who knows?
Who knows? She was cleaning or looking for something. And then, like, the next day, she was just like out of it. Like, just she was like, my body hurts, and I'm like, well, yeah, you were under the freaking house, like crawling, and you're not a spring chicken anymore. And so I remember she had gotten a fever and she just was not well. And so, and again, my mom was, when I moved home, I don't remember, she was in her like late 60s by that point. And so we took her to Charity back before Katrina destroyed Charity Hospital. And we went into, because she didn't have really great insurance.
That's my fault. Sorry, I made you yawn.
You did. And so we went into there, and you just had always heard, horror stories about Charity's emergency waiting room, and it did not disappoint. I mean, there were people there that had been in fights that were like maybe gunshot wounds, knife fight. I mean, they were just all sitting there waiting, and we went, and there were probably like 50 to 100 people waiting. And I mean, I just remember going, we are going to be here forever. But when we went, they did like an initial, I think they did an initial like question of like, did she have a fever? And I said, yeah, she has a fever. It's pretty, I can tell it's high. And so when they took her temperature, I think she had a temperature of like 104, which is considered highly like dangerous. And especially because she was a senior citizen, they took her back right away. And so I was like, I kind of felt really bad. Like we just bypassed everybody. And then, I mean, I didn't feel bad after a minute.
What was the Spencer joke? Genie Plus for hospitals?
Yes. And
you got the fast pass?
Got the fast pass. And so this was, I think, when she had to have like knee surgery or she had her gallbladder out. I don't remember, because she went to Charity twice. I don't remember what that exact trip was, but they treated her very well. I mean, aside from the waiting room insanity, that hospital was amazing. I mean, it was complete Charity hospital. I don't think she really got a bill for that stay, and she had surgery, and I think she stayed a few days. I mean, yeah. And so, that was another experience that I personally had with my mom. So, I did have a question for you, though.
Okay.
You went to EMT school.
I did.
Did you ever go to any ERs on your ride-alongs? I mean, or
yeah. So when I did my 2 ride-alongs, so my first ride-along was more eventful than the second one. My second one was where we were located. We were in West Baton Rouge Parish. We were kind of like Port Allen area. The river, there just wasn't a whole lot going on that day. I guess
lucky.
I guess I got lucky. Well, yeah, you don't want bad things to happen, but you also want to get a feel of what the job is like when the poop hits the fan. You really want to know what it's like.
Yeah, for sure.
But on my first day, my my first ride along, I got super lucky, and I got to go to the hospital down the road from us. That was like, I was very grateful. Our EMT instructor really tried to help us out, in the sense, tried to get us to hospitals that, like, meeting spots that, like, were near where we lived. And that one was interesting in that was like, I saw a woman have like a seizure. There were a couple of car accidents. Like I said, nothing of note. However, so when my shift was done, we got out, and then, like, the two other EMTs that are taking over that specific car, or that specific, what are they called? Ambulance. Oh, I couldn't think of that.
Brain fart.
Sorry. That ambulance. So, we have to, like, clean it and sanitize it. Then the new paramedics kind of come in, and so one of my classmates was doing a ride along with them, and we were like, "Hey, what's up?" He was asking me, like, how mine was. It was his first ride along, and I was like, "Oh, nothing really. Like, a couple car accidents, like a woman having a seizure." Less than an hour into his ride along, there was that wreck off of 447 where that person died.
Oh.
And I mean, which one? Obviously, because 447 is we live off of an extremely dangerous highway, where people drive very recklessly. It's very curvy and windy. It's not very well lit. People just drive very recklessly down there, and someone literally died in the ambulance on my classmate's first ride along.
Wow.
I mean, like, they lifted him up to, I mean, like, got blood all over him, and he was just like, an hour and a half into his shift, he had to go and change. I mean, like, he was like, he came, I mean, he's still an EMT, he's still a paramedic, so he was,
it didn't scar him for life.
But I kind of kept thinking, like, okay, now I'm glad that my day was boring. Like, I'm glad that my day was boring. My second ride along, there was one car accident, and then we were transporting because we were in West Baton Rouge, we were close to downtown. And so we kept going over the bridge. We kept going over that bridge over and over again. And
which is crazy.
We were transporting elderly patients from, like, hospice or, like, the nursing home to where they get for cancer, where they get the medicine, where they sit in the chair. Chemotherapy. I'm having brain farts all over the place. Yeah, so there was a lot of transporting, but nothing of note. I mean, I only had 2 ride-alongs, so they're... Yeah. I am glad. I mean, obviously, I didn't end up doing it, mostly because I kind of found out when I was already in it, and I was already in school and almost done, how terribly paid EMTs are, how awful the benefits are, how awful the hours are. You have to work overtime just to bear. So what I would probably still be making as a paramedic now doesn't even come close to what I'm getting paid as a kitchen manager. I'm not even getting paid, like, a butt ton of money to be a kitchen manager. So, I mean, I would still be, and they try to, like, oh, but when you work, as an EMT, you have all of these great benefits, which I'm not doubting, but I mean, like, oh, you have, your 401k, how that works, or you end up with so much money when you retire. And I'm like, I can't imagine the stress and especially, like, I decided not to be an EMT, and then COVID hit. So it was just like, so then I was just like, okay, so I really, for me personally, I am glad with the decision that I made. I will say that I did enjoy surgical tech. I did do a lot more of that than the 2 ride-alongs. I mean, I was at Tulane for like 3 months, I think. So, and it was a full-time job that I wasn't getting paid for. Yeah. So also I understand what medical interns have to go through. I mean, I don't think they get paid at all, and they have to work like 60, 80 hours a week, and they don't have a life. It wasn't that bad. I was still able to work at Georgia, because I was working at Georgia's too. So it was like I had 2 full-time jobs, and I wasn't getting paid for one, so it was rough.
And driving to New Orleans.
And I was driving to New Orleans. And then immediately, still in my scrubs, going to George's, changing at George's, and then going home, and then having to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and do the whole thing over again. It was
oh my gosh.
It was obviously not worth it because I'm not a surgical tech, but ultimately it just wasn't for me because it was just very boring. And it was very, I know being a cook can be kind of monotonous, but I'm able to talk. I'm able to walk around. I'm able to
Well, I think
move.
you said that was like during surgery, you couldn't talk. You just had to sit.
Sometimes I would just be holding a limb for 2 hours, or I would just be holding holding like forceps in place like this for like an hour, and I would just have to stay like that, and I could not move.
You were literally holding your hands in front of you, like with your hands holding one another.
Yeah.
Like I
can't talk. I just have to sit there, and it's like you can't turn your brain off, because you turn your brain off, you might, move, and it's just like you have to like I'm probably making it sound a lot more dramatic than it is, just because of my memory of it. But it was very boring. You really have to have a passion for it. I would say you really have to like, enjoy it. I would say. All right, so we've been gabbing. Let's get into this plot summary.
Okay.
All right, ER 24 hours. So it was 90 minutes long. And there was a lot going on, so I'm just going to kind of give the highlights of the episode. It's still, it's not a lot, but like it's still, it's a little bit. And there was just a lot going on. So here we go. All right. At Chicago's County General Hospital, ER chief resident Dr. Mark Green is asleep in an exam room and is awoken to attend to the drunk Dr. Doug Ross. So you're not really told immediately why he's being summoned. He's just like, someone's asking for you. Someone's asking for you. And obviously this guy's Dr. Green's probably only gotten like 30 seconds of sleep. He's probably on his like 30th hour of his shift, and he's probably just wanting some sleep. Life of a doctor. So he has to tend to the drunk doctor, Dr. Doug Ross, played by George Clooney, who I guess gets drunk on all of his days off and then needs the quick fix to.
I'm gonna tell you that when we were watching this, I don't really remember him drinking that much after this.
Okay.
Like I think this is maybe like a true pilot, in the sense of like they were just kind of throwing some things out there to see what happens.
Right.
We'll talk a little bit more as you go, but I don't really remember him being drunk that often throughout the series. But we learn later why he was drunk.
A building collapse in the Loop brings a dozen critically injured patients to the ER. Most are successfully treated. Green informs a man of his father's death, and the man breaks down. Green meets his wife Jennifer and daughter Rachel in the cafeteria. Jennifer reminds him of his appointment later that day for a potential new job with a private practice. So private practice, you're working office hours, you're working Monday through Friday. How sweet of a gig could that be? Especially if you're working for an inner city ER where you're just, you're working 100 hours a week. Yeah, exactly. Surgical student John Carter, that's Noah Wiley, right?
Yes.
Okay, so surgical student John Carter arrives for the first day of his ER rotation and is assigned to Dr. Peter Benton. After a quick-fire tour, Benton demonstrates how to start an IV and suture before he is called away. The inexperienced Carter manages to treat a woman with a hand laceration and a man with anger issues who shot himself in the leg. Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Him kind of like just slowly suturing the lady, be like, I think you're. Oh, what did the lady ask? Like, when can I
get the stitches?
When
out?
can I get the stitches out? He's like 3 weeks. He's like, my friend said he had his out in 10 days. Oh well,
10 days, 3 weeks.
Yeah,
whatever.
It's a window or whatever he said. That was really funny.
I know. When he said 3 weeks, I was like, wow.
Ross meets his new medical student Tracy Young. So was she supposed to be like, were they supposed to make her a series regular?
Yes.
And then it didn't work out?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean is like, I think this obviously, and we'll talk about it here in a little bit about Carol Hathaway, but yeah, I think she was like maybe one of the potential series regulars that didn't stick.
So we have talked a lot about Shannon Doherty. The girl who played Tracy Young was Natalie in Girls Just Want to Have Fun,
I know.
who we have already talked about as one of our favorite 80s movies, and we love Sarah Jessica Parker. You were just watching Sex and the City.
I was.
And we both love Shannon Doherty for obvious reasons. We had a whole episode where we talked about her. Just a full, just another kind of
I know when we were watching
thing.
this, we both were like
driving me crazy. I was like, the voice, because I always like hate that I'm like, her hair looks different. I can't recognize her, but like when I'm I've only ever seen her in Girls Just Want to Have Fun. So like she had the curly hair.
Yeah.
And she had straight hair in this. As soon as I realized, I'm like, oh, she just has different hair. I felt so dumb. But I was just like, the voice. I was like, as soon as I matched it, I'm like, oh, okay. It's also weird seeing her not be the villain. She was actually a good person. All right, so Ross meets his new medical student, Tracy Young, who we were just talking about. They diagnose a young boy with a stomach ulcer, presumably due to the stress from his overbearing mother, which that was a lot. That was hard to watch. Ross flirts with nurse manager Carol Hathaway, who you were just talking about, and reminisces about their past relationship. A woman gives birth in the trauma room. So basically, like someone, a cab driver shows up and is like, a woman is in labor, and they're like, we don't have a labor and delivery room. You're gonna have to go down the street or wherever. And they're just like, no, this baby's coming out now. And so poor Noah Wiley has to. I mean.
She's crowning. I'm
screaming. We got to do The Office one day.
Yeah.
So that was actually really funny. And then when the lady, and there's kind of this moment where Noah Wiley's like kind of freaking out, and then he kind of is not really helping at that point. Once the doctors take over, he kind of just watches. But then when he sees the baby get born, you kind of see something in him that's like, you can see that like this is what he wants to do. Like you can see like he loves
the revelation.
He loves being a doctor. Like this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah,
it's really cool. It was very subtle. There was no dialogue about it. You just great acting by Noah Wiley. Obviously, he's a great actor. But yeah, it was just a very sweet moment. Like that scene and that whole thing, because I'm a sucker for stuff like that. So like. Not having to use dialogue, just emoting, and I really liked that scene. It was very cute.
It was, and of course, you and I since we've started this, we start dissecting scenes.
We do that anyway.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even more so, and then especially like when Miranda gave birth on Sex and the City, no one in the delivery room had any kind of like gloves on.
Anybody who's going to make a movie or a show and you are in a medical facility, just have them wear gloves. There's going to be much less criticism if they just wear gloves.
Yeah, Noah Wiley didn't put gloves on.
No.
Yeah, so we were both like, oh my gosh.
He just put his finger right up in there.
Yeah, it was with both hands. So, yeah.
But that scene was very sweet. It was very cute. At his appointment, Green finds the affluent private practice much calmer than the chaotic hospital, obviously. But despite the offer of better pay and less stressful hours, he is unconvinced to leave the ER. Dr. Susan Lewis shows a patient, Mr. Parker, the X-ray of a mass in his lungs. This was also a really sad scene.
Oh
yeah. Miguel Ferrer played Mr. Parker. Great actor. He passed away a few years ago.
He's related to George Clooney. I think they're cousins.
That's right. Mr. Parker, the X-ray. Yeah, he has a mass in his lungs. He tries to. He basically just tries to like
calm him.
Yeah, this word I don't know what it means.
Assuage his fears. Yeah, calm your fears.
Oh, okay. I've never,
because he knew.
I've never seen that word before.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
He knew he had cancer. I mean, you could see it on the X-ray.
Right, and he really wanted to be told. It was like the doctor was really trying. She was really trying to be like, well, we don't know. Like, we don't know yet. I can't tell you something, but she's just like, it's cancer. And you probably...
He was battling her, and she was battling back. She didn't want to tell him.
Right.
And it's kind of like when we've all been to the doctor's office.
Yeah.
I mean, I can honestly say when I go in for my mammograms every year, a couple of years ago, I had to go back. And
Yes,
I'm trying to get
that.
the rad tech, who was obviously not a doctor. I'm like, do you see anything? Do you see anything? And then, you know, they call someone else back and you're like, that's not good.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, watching this, I'm like, I think we've all felt like something like that
Right.
when we've been to a doctor's office and, you know, he's like, tell me.
So, like you said, he asks for a frank diagnosis, and she basically tells him that it looks like cancer and that he likely has about 6 months to live. But she assures him that nothing is certain, and he thanks her for her honesty. I mean, he breaks down and he cries and he has a moment. It was a very, very touching, very sweet scene, but he was grateful that he was like, thank you for being honest with me. Like, now I want to go travel with my wife. Let's go. I'm going to travel with my wife. I only have 6 months. And even if I have more than 6 months, like, I need to live. Like, and that's such a, I mean, ironically beautiful, I guess is a good way to kind of put it. Like, it's,
you know, sometimes a diagnosis like that slaps you into the present, you know.
it's almost like you're told, it's like you find out that you're dying and that's when you start living. I know that's a really weird way to put it, but like, I mean, that's kind of the idea. Frequent ER visitor Mrs. Raskin seeks out Green for medical attention for a hangnail. Hathaway leaves as the ER shifts change. Carter treats a young woman who is distraught at having crashed her father's new Cadillac. Her father, though angry, is relieved she is okay. Not fully. It seems as if this family was very wealthy and they had multiple cars because she was like, I crashed your car, and he was like, oh, it's okay. And she was just like, it's the Cadillac. And he was just like, the Cadillac. And he just like got really upset. It was, you know, I think it was meant to be like touching, but then funny. I think that was the idea. Benton scolds Carter for having more patients waiting to be seen. Ross sees to young boy who has swallowed his mother's house key. Carter treats a girl with stomach pains who insists she's not pregnant. Carter brings in Benton, who determines that she has an ectopic pregnancy, which is really funny. She's like, I can't be pregnant. And then she's like, they're like, have you had sex? And she's like, yeah. It's like, well, then you could be pregnant.
Right.
In the cafeteria, Green and Lewis discuss his job offer. They receive an urgent call and return to the ER to find Ross and most of his staff waiting by the ambulance bay doors. Paramedics arrive with an unconscious Hathaway who has overdosed on medication in a suicide attempt. The staff manages to stabilize her as the rest of the ER looks on. Green comforts Ross. It was also, you kind of pointed this out, that they seem more concerned with why she did it.
They kept asking, does anyone know why she did it? Okay, well, first off, I don't think she called anyone up and said, hey, I'm about to commit suicide.
Right. These are the reasons why. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, I hated that. I mean, and I feel like, you know, those are the things that are troublesome even still today.
Oh, I mean,
you know,
yes.
So it really bugged me in those, because that wasn't the only scene that it happened. It was like even later,
right? So when
she
the roommate brings
Yes.
Hathaway in, and they're like, you know, why? Do you know why she did? She's like, we've only been roommates for like a short amount of time. I don't know her that well, and obviously she's a nurse at a ER, so I mean, like, she's always working.
But even then, it's like, is that what you're gonna ask the roommate?
That's not really
like,
that's not really, and I don't know who said it, but someone said, I think maybe William H. Macy said it, like, we have to treat her like a patient, like we can't make this personal. We have to treat her like every other patient,
right?
Which is hard to do when you know the person. Carter, nauseated by a patient's stab wound, goes outside for air. He is counseled by Green, who assures him that he feels sick because he is a doctor who has chosen to keep his feelings, and that Benton was also sick as med student. Hathaway remains in a coma. Green forcefully assures a patient with an ulcer that he does not have cancer. Which that was, I guess that was also kind of funny because, like, he was like, you have an ulcer. He's like, I knew it. It's cancer. It's cancer. He's like, you don't have cancer. He's like, I have cancer. He's like, you don't have cancer. It was very much like, What I appreciated about this pilot was that they really, really covered all the bases of every type of patient you can have. You have the people that are accepting terrible news. You have people who can't accept having a hangnail, and you have people who are convinced they have cancer when they're being told by professionals that they don't have cancer. Ross examines a baby with various bruises brought to the hospital by the babysitter and calls Child and Family Services. Green treats a college student with burns on her inner thigh and ignores her overt sexual advances. Yeah, that was something.
Yeah, the
girl that was hitting on Anthony Edwards, who had like burnt legs. I'm like, yeah, that's not the time. Benton sees a patient with a ruptured aneurysm and severe internal bleeding requiring immediate surgery. With no surgical teams available, Benton, despite only being a resident, decides to perform the surgery himself. Lewis calls for Chief of Surgery, Dr. Morgenstern. Benton cockily begins his first solo procedure. He finds the bleed and holds it closed until Morgenstern can take over. Morgenstern criticizes Benson's incision, declaring that a good veterinarian would have done better, but congratulations for him making on the right call. Ross confronts the mother of the battered baby with evidence of her abuse. Benton visits the surgical patient and assures his wife that he will be just fine. Carter sutures his final patient.
Finally.
With no more patients to see, Benton, Carter, and Green find places to sleep. Green lies down and is seemingly instantly woken up for another day in the ER, and the cycle continues. End of episode.
But one thing that we should also note was Carol Hathaway was not supposed to survive.
So was she still, and I know I was reading all this, was she still in a coma when the episode ended?
Yes.
So does she, okay, so that, okay.
We didn't watch the next couple of episodes, but yeah, it's all of a sudden like, I think she obviously eventually comes out of the coma and then comes back to work. And she is dating another doctor in the main part of the hospital, not in the ER.
Oh, okay.
And I think that was kind of why they had Doug Ross drunk at the beginning, because he was sort of jealous of that relationship. They didn't talk about it much. And so that's kind of why I was like, yeah, I don't remember him being drunk ever, because they didn't really bring that up again. I mean, there was obviously always, everyone knew that they had been a couple and she was now engaged to this other doctor and whatnot. But yeah, so Juliana Margulies, who I love in a lot of different things.
She was on Scrubs.
She was not supposed to be a series regular. She was only supposed to be on the pilot.
Wow.
So unlike Tracy Young, the med student under Doug Ross, who was supposed to, and then
they really were setting that up.
Yeah. So they swapped those out because those were the two that were, I think, kind of flip-flopped from the episode.
And it's also really cool, I think you mentioned it in the series information, that they do kind of have this like great supporting cast of nurses and orderlies. We talked about a couple of the actors while we were watching the episode. I'm like, God, that person's been in
Abraham
everything.
Ben Ruby.
Oh,
and
when I was looking up his filmography, I was just like, this guy has been in so many great movies and TV shows.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a fan.
Yeah.
All right. So if this show came out now, if you watched that episode for the first time, would you still be interested just because it's the medical field?
Yeah. I mean, I think there was enough to keep you wanting to watch.
Yeah.
I think, it was a show, I mean, with the exception of Juliana Margulies coming back, I will say it was very male-centric. I mean, there was Sherry Stringfield, who played Dr. Susan Lewis. But you had, Noah Wiley, Anthony Edwards, George Clooney, Peter LaSalle. You had four male...
William H.Macy, did you say that?
Well, he wasn't necessarily considered a series regular.
He was recurring.
Yeah, he was recurring.
Gotcha.
So... yeah, I would have watched it. I mean, I wouldn't have cared that there were, four male leads and really just one female lead.
Yeah,
but
it became a lot more even, I guess, later on in the series with like
Yes.
Kelly Martin, Linda Cardellini, and they
well,
added a bunch of people.
those were much later. I
Right.
mean, you had people like Laura Innes who came in.
That's right. Okay.
Oh God. Jeannie Boulay. That was her character name, and I can't think of her actual
You're
name.
the expert. Yeah, I didn't really watch ER.
Yeah. So I mean, there were other female
Mm-hmm.
leads that came in as well. So so yes, I would have watched it. I think it was still really good. I think it held up. I don't think there was anything in it that I felt like completely offended by.
There really
I mean,
wasn't.
minus the questionable suicide. Like, why?
But that's
you know,
also
but-
kind of reality. I mean,
Oh yeah,
that's
people
still
always
today.
ask. I mean, and he doesn't even have to be
People need
sadly a suicide. Even if someone just died, people want to know why.
Mhm.
I think it's just a question of, just curiosity. I think there, especially because they were coworkers, they all kind of wanted to know. They were all gawking at the scene and the, surgery and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be honest. The pilot was a lot. There was a lot going on. It was hard to keep track of everything, but I guess that was. Now reflecting on it, I'm sure that was the point. It was meant to be chaotic. It was meant to be like a lot of things happening at once because that is the reality of,
I mean, it was
working.
90 minutes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there was still a lot. I mean, like, I know I just kind of did like a 2-page stuff, but I mean, I was remembering stuff as I was reading it, and I'm just like, man, I was really just kind of going over the highlight reel.
Well, I'm thinking that was 90 minutes on streaming. It was probably a 2-hour
2.5, yeah.
episode when you were watching it in live time. So, yeah. But I watched it and I
Yeah.
continued to watch it.
Yeah, I would keep watching it just because I kind of, now that you've kind of talked about the Nurse Hathaway thing, not being a part of it, and then that kind of continuing to be a part of the show, I'm intrigued now. And also, like, I love the cast. I mean, obviously I love the cast. Such a great cast.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, just everybody. You got Anthony Edwards, and then you have a little bit later another movie that you and I both love is Fame.
Oh, yeah.
And probably, I mean, is he not considered like one of the best like villain types of most shows?
Yes.
Paul McCrane?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He is kind of the hard ass, but he has like a teeny tiny speck of goodness. Like he connects with, later on, Peter Benton's son is deaf, and he knows sign language, and so he communicates with him when he's a baby and a toddler.
Okay.
So you see that he does deep down have a heart, but I guess as like, the whatever his title was, the chief of the ER or the attending or whatever his title was you got to be a hard ass. I mean, you're
was he like
dealing,
the chief of medicine or something?
yeah, something like that. I mean,
Didn't he have like an insane death on the show?
Oh, he had an insane loss of his arm by a helicopter.
That's what it was.
And then a helicopter fell on him in the whatever you call it when they come into the doors in the it's not the driveway.
The entryway?
Yeah, whatever.
Sure.
It's called something else,
Yeah.
but
The triage.
yeah. He had a crazy like path on ER, but yeah, he was amazing as well. So yeah, lots of great actors and actresses came through this show, and
So like we
Mekhi
said,
Phifer.
oh yeah.
He had a good run. There were a couple of other people too. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, all 15 seasons are on Hulu and on Max. So y'all go and watch ER if you want to reminisce, or if you want to look back, or if you've never watched it at all and you have 330 some episodes worth of time to pass.
Hey.
Go for it. I mean, we are long. The days of 300 episodes a series are long over, so maybe one of y'all wants to go relive it.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that about wraps up this episode, where it is after midnight. I need to post an episode, and I am sleepy. So That about wraps up this episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. That way you'll be notified every time we upload a new episode. You can also follow us on Instagram at WeJudgePilotPod. We're also on Facebook. Leave us a comment, maybe suggest a show for us to watch, or leave some emojis in the comments. Anna, what are they?
I don't have actually too many. I have the doctor and the nurse.
They have like 1,000 of
and
those.
The hospital. The bean, again, for Chicago. The shot, the injection, the whatever you call that, the blood drop, the stethoscope, the scales of justice for Mark Green's wife, who is in law school.
Right.
The X-ray emoji, the car emoji, the key emoji, any of the babies, the fire, and the needle and thread to represent the stitches. So, that's it. All right. Well, we are going to head out. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.